Welcome to my shop. My name is Guy, and in this video I'm going to show you how I built this kitchen island. It's made out of white oak, it's got soft close undermount drawer slides, and it was a lot of fun to build. So let's get to work. This is some white oak. This will eventually become the legs. So it's all rough. What I need to do first is start chopping it up in a little bit more manageable chunks and then getting it milled to its final thickness. All the wood is milled up to 3/4 of an inch, and this is what I'm left with. This is pretty representative of most of the pile. This is almost all rift sawn. What I really want to do is I want to get 2-inch strips out of this of all this very, very straight grain. I'll move the camera and you can take a closer look at this board. So if you look at this board here, this is all straight grain or rift sawn grain, and this is some flat sawn here. What I want to do is I want to have rift sawn, or the straight grain, going all the way around the legs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip off some strips about 2 1/4, 2 1/2 inch on each side. I'm going to rabbet them together to make a 2-inch square. I need a hole in the middle because one of the legs has to have electrical running up through it, so I might as well make all 4 legs the same. After getting my leg stocked down to a final width of 2 inches, I've installed a dado stack on my table saw, and I've got it raised up 5/8 of an inch high, and I've got 3/4 inch of the blade exposed. I'm just going to create a rabbet along the inside edge of all the leg stock pieces. The glue's all dry, and I got the legs out of the tape and cleaned them up a little bit using the drum sander. Now I just need to go over the miter saw and come to final length. Now on the top of the legs I've drawn a carpenter's triangle. This is the back, this is the front, and there's going to be dados or grooves for both the side panels and the back panel, and I'm going to cut those at the router table. I'm over here at the router table. I'm getting ready to cut the grooves in the legs. I've got an undersized plywood bit from Whiteside, which is I think 23/32, which is the thickness of the plywood. I've got it raised up a 1/2 inch, and I've got it moved over 3/4 of an inch from the fence. Now I've taken a square and I've marked the leading and trailing edges of the bit by moving the fences in and out a little bit, and that way I've got a solid line there. And that's so I can take this. Some of these legs I've got to push it through, and some of these legs I have to plunge it, and that'll just allow me to get it to the right point. Well, after cutting a straight edge with my track saw on this plywood and cutting a perpendicular edge to that with my square, I'm ready to start breaking down the plywood. Now I'm going to be using edge guides for this, and these are nice because I can break down the sheet of plywood to their final size, so I don't need to kind of cut it down and then run it through the table saw again. So I've got my cut list, I've got the guide set up for the first cut, and I'm just going to start breaking this down. Now I've got all the plywood ripped down to its final width. I can start making the cross cuts. And I'm going to use the parallel guides again. These are nice because I can get a repetitive cut going all the way down for the sizes and the pieces I need. Now some of these cross cuts are for very long pieces. I'm not going to use parallel guides for those since they're one-offs. In other words, just one of these pieces is going to be that final dimension. So I'm going to use my adjustable track square on those pieces to cut them to size. I've got the sides out of the clamps, and on one side there's going to be drawer slides, and on the other side there's going to be a shelf. Now normally what I would do, because it's kind of like a frame and panel, is pack out the sides just a little bit. But in this case, I'm going to pack out the sides completely with just another piece of plywood, and this was by design. Well, this is the back of the piece, and this is the bottom facing me. I've got to do a couple weird things with this cabinet. It's frame and panel, kind of, but it's kind of a kitchen cabinet too. So I'm actually going to attach the dividers to the back, and then I'll screw them in from the bottom underneath. So I've marked out where the dividers are going to go. There's going to be one here and one here. And on this side, there's going to be a space for a microwave and a drawer underneath, and then there'll be two banks of drawers here. So I need to start marking out for where the dominoes are going to go and get this all set up. So I'm going to take this as my reference line right here. I'm going to move my square over till it just kisses that line, and then I'll put a couple clamps in place so it doesn't move around on me. With that in place, I need to account for the bottom. So I've just got this spacer right here. I'm just going to put it up there till it's flush and get that all set up. And then I can take some more clamps and I can clamp this piece down to the back. Well, I've made some marks right here, and that's where the dominoes are going to go. I only need to mark this one piece because I'm always going to use this corner as my reference edge. So I can line up this with that line there, make a plunge, and I can also just flip it this way, and with the line on the bottom, line up with that mark and make a plunge. And I know it's always going to hit that one reference point. So this is where the dividers are going to go, and there's going to be 3 drawers here, 3 drawers here, and 1 drawer here and a shelf. So I'm going to open this up like a book because I need mirror images, and I'm going to start marking where actually I'm going to put biscuits in for the dividers for those shelves. Now this is the front of the divider, and I know that because I made a mark here. There's going to be edge band that goes on here later. And I'm just going to take my storage stick, and I've got marked out where the bottoms of those dividers are going to be. There's going to be one there and one there. I just need to do the other piece and the other side and this one, but you get the idea. Now to make these biscuit slots in the front of dividers, it's pretty much the same thing I did with the domino. I've got the mark there, and I'm going to take a square and put it on that mark, clamp it in place, and then I can take my biscuit machine, put it on there, use this as a reference, and then just the edge of the machine as a reference, and make a plunge. Now this is the bottom piece, and there'll be pocket holes going along the back and along the sides. Another thing I like to do before I glue up is actually install the drawer slides. It's much easier to do with the cabinet apart than it is together. So I've marked out the center line of where the holes need to go, and I've made this template. Now I'm going to be installing 21-inch drawer slides here and here, and 15-inch up here on top. So I've got 37 and 21, which is a setback, plus the 21-inch drawer slide, and then the 15-inch. So I'm just going to take my drill bit, line up the crosshairs, and drill these. I'm ready to start installing the biscuits in the dividers. I don't want to try to glue all this up at once. I'm going to do something a little bit different as far as how I get the dividers and the shelf in. I've done this before. I'm not sure I've ever done it on video though. That being said, there's a couple times where these biscuits are back to back, so I had to modify these biscuits a little bit. So there's a flat spot so that they'll meet in the middle like that and won't force the other one out. So I'm ready to put some glue in here and get these in. I'm back here at the router table, and the bit I have in here is actually a biscuit joining router bit. And I've got a bearing on it set for number 20 biscuit. Now these are the dividers that are going to go into the case. So I need to keep the bottom, as marked by the B here, on the table. And I'm just going to push them through with the miter fence and create a biscuit slot going all the way through it right here. So this is one of the dividers, and if you remember, I put some slots here. This edge banding is actually going to cover that up, and once it's done like that, I can assemble the rest of the case and I can just slide these in. So I've done a partial glue up here, and it's just the sides to the back. And I'm using these special corner clamps that really helped out get this square. I left this in the clamps for about 2 hours. Now I'm just getting ready to attach the bottom. And this is all done with pocket screws, so it goes pretty fast. Now that I've got the back end, I can concentrate on the middle vertical dividers. So there's one here and one here, and I'm just going to put some glue in these domino holes, pound it in, put some clamps on it to keep everything in place and nice and square, and then I'll come in from the bottom and put some screws to stiffen everything up. Well, I managed to get this off my assembly table, which was a trick, doing it by myself. So all the drawer slides are in. I've got these on top. These are 15-inch. These are 21-inch. The reason I want this room back here is there has to be some electrical that runs through here. And you can't really see them, but there's biscuits under here. And this is one of the shelves. And these are just going to slide in like that, and I'll put some glue on it and clamp it all together. Well, I have all the horizontal dividers in and the shelf in. And they all went in without a lot of drama, which makes me happy. And I got some clamps on there pretty easy. Everything is really, really super square, so I'm pretty happy with it. taken some time off camera to mill all the material I need to make the drawers. And this is a drawer stock for the bulk of the drawers, and this is a drawer stock for the two smaller drawers on top. Now the first thing I want to do to this material is make this a nice round over on the top so it's smooth to the touch. The material's 1/2 inch thick, and I've got a 1/2 inch beading bit set up on my router table. After I've got that round over on the top, I need to route a groove in the bottom. Now this is for the drawer bottom that'll slip into here. It's a 1/2 inch up to the bottom of the groove, and it's about halfway deep, 1/4 of an inch. Now I've got a special bit in here, and this is a 7/32 of an inch bit, and that's for the undersized 1/4 inch plywood, because 1/4 inch plywood, as we know, isn't 1/4 of an inch. Over here at the miter station, I'm going to cut all the drawer parts to size, and I'm going to use a stop and a hold down and just get to cutting. So here's all the parts for the drawers. Now I'm going to work on the joinery, which is going to be done with dominoes. After I cut all the parts for the drawers, I sanded them, I put a coat of shellac on them, and on the backs of all the drawers I cut out a notch for the drawer slides before I assembled them. So I didn't record the glue up. I mean, it's gluing up drawer boxes, it's not too exciting. So the next thing I need to do, if you've never seen these undermount drawer slides before, is I need to attach these clips. And this is what actually attaches to the drawer slides themselves. I'm just going to use a jig and drill the required holes and then attach these. So the hole in the back is to attach to a little peg that's on the back of these slides. And these just go in real easy. I'm just going to drop them onto the slides and then push them in until I hear a click. Like that, and they're in. Now this is some of the material I'm going to be using for the drawer faces themselves. It's 3/4 inch white oak, and this particular piece is going to be 2 drawer fronts. I'm going to have continuous grain going along it. But I also want to have these cathedrals kind of going in the center of the drawers. So I'm going to make a first cut right here at about 8.5 inches. I need to cut off some of the sapwood and some defects in this edge. And then I'm going to flip the board around and cut it to its final width of 7.5 inches. I've got the material for the drawer faces laid out. This is the top, middle, and bottom set of drawers. And I've just taken a ruler and I've kind of marked out where the drawers are going to be. Again, I want a continuous grain. And now that I've got those marked out, I can mark this lower A, lower B, and lower C. And then mark the other ones and then start cutting these to their final length. After squaring this one edge, I've got my stop set. I'm just going to start cutting these to length. This is a test sample I ran through and I'm pretty happy with it. I've got a little 1/16 inch fillet right here and a nice sweeping round over. This is a 1/2 inch round over bit. I've got a feather board in place. I've got everything ready to go. So I just need to start running the drawer faces through these, face down of course. And I'm going to run the end grain first. Here's all the drawer faces complete. I really like the way they turned out. There's very nice detail on the front. And now comes a lot of sanding. This is a stain sample that my wife approved, and I'm starting to apply it now. I've got the drawer faces done. I wanted to get this done first before I turn on the camera, just to make sure everything was okay. And I'm applying it with this thing, which is like a, it's called Stain Pad. It's actually a pretty good product. And I'm using alcohol-based dye. It's trans tint dye. It's actually dark walnut, very small amount of dark walnut dye. And the color is going to come out real nice. So I'm just going to go ahead and start applying it to the rest of the piece. I'm starting to put on the finish, and what this is polyurethane 50% mixed with naphtha. I'm just applying it with a paper towel. Just going to make sure I've got a good amount on here and just wipe it on. It's kind of like almost Armor Seal or the wiping poly that you get from Minwax. And I'm just going to put a coat of this on, let it dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'll come back with some steel wool, get all the dust nibs off, and then apply a second coat. I'll probably end up putting, I don't know, 3 or 4 coats on, maybe 5, somewhere in that area. But it goes on real easy.